She tapped on Di Fui's shoulder. Alright, could you excuse yourself and help me to guard the tent? Sure. Enjoy. Di Fui turned around and walked out of the tent. Finally, Gu Shizhou removed all her clothes and jumped into the bathtub. Find authorized novels and webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. The water in the bathtub was warm, and there seemed to be some herbs inside. She could smell a fragrance as she soaked in there, and it was certainly very comfortable as the water just covered her shoulders. She had not had such a nice bath for a very long time. She used to worry that her true identity would be exposed, hence, she never removed the wrapper on her chest for 6 months, and she always bathed with her clothes on. Now, since he has got a bathtub for her and was guarding the perimeter, she could finally enjoy a bath. She looked at her chest and realized it had become flatter and smaller. While washing off the paint on her face, she also realized that it was easy to apply the paint but was very difficult to wash it off. To her surprise, she realized that the herbs in the water helped to remove the paint. She just soaked herself in the bathtub for a short while, and all the paints began to fade away and reveal her original skin color. The weather was extremely hot, hence, Gu Shizhou got sunburnt even though she was covered with paint. Before Di Fui came here, Gu Shizhou did not care about her outlook. However, he was now just outside, so Gu Shizhou wanted to surprise Di Fui after washing off the paints. However, her skin tone was darker than she expected. She decided to bathe a little longer and almost scrubbed off a layer of her skin. After making sure that was her skin color had indeed changed, she decided to give up. Di Fui had prepared a full set of clothes for her, including an inner dress, an outer dress, and many more accessories. Each of them was made with high-quality materials and made her look like a fairy when she put them on. Di Fui was looking at the lake near the tent when Gu Shizhou emerged. He turned around as he heard some movements. He was impressed by her beauty in the light blue dress. She finally got the paint off her face and revealed her beautiful eyes. Although her skin was tan, she looked amazing and special. Gu Shizhou spun in a circle in front of him and asked, "What do you think? Do I look beautiful?" In fact, she was confident about her appearance. However, she still wanted to impress him. After all, he was indeed very charming, hence, she might not be good enough for him. Di Fui did not speak a word as he fixed his eyes on her. Gu Shizhou began to feel uneasy under his intense gaze. "Do you think I am tan?" "In fact, I used to be very fair, but I got sunburnt since I came here. It is scorching hot." "Huh?" Di Fui looked at her miserably. He was not impressed. Gu Shizhou was bothered and grabbed his collar. Furiously, she asked, "Try to tell me I am ugly, would you?" In fact, she looked young and lovely. Di Fui grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his embrace. He placed his mouth beside her ear and whispered, "I will kill whoever that says that you are not beautiful." When these angry words came out from his mouth, Gu Shizhou felt a warmth in her heart. She always had the urge to rush into his arms. Now, when she was really in his embrace, it was as warm as she imagined it would be, which gave her a strong sense of trust. As long as he was there, she would not be afraid of anything. If there were any trouble she got into, he would be able to solve it for her and stay by her side no matter what. The unique fragrance on Di Fui's body seemed to be familiar to her, and she was extremely eager to smell it again. As the scent entered her nostrils, she felt as though she had reclaimed something she had lost before. She could not help but raise her arm and hug his waist. Find authorized novels and webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. She could feel that his waist was thin and firm. That was the first time that she took the initiative to hug him. Everything was just natural. Di Fui felt that the moment was surreal. He looked at her pretty face in his arms. His heart had experienced massive turbulence, and he could not help but kiss her forehead. "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. No one can be compared with you." There was a benefit to her amnesia, she would show her true colors. If she liked him, she would like him without much consideration and psychological pressure. She no longer claimed herself to be old, either. Di Fui could see that she was a little girl inside. But that she was his girl. Gu Zijia's face was hot, and she felt satisfied. She too felt that everything was surreal. The night before, she was still worried about meals the next day. She was always concerned about how to break out of this place. She never expected that after only one day, everything would change by so much. She learned that she came from heaven and had a fiancé with such powerful skills. She did not trust people easily, so if someone else had come in and said that he was her fiancé, she would probably kick that person away. However, Di Fui was an exception. In his arms, she felt an overwhelming sense of joy. She looked up at him, and he was looking at her with eyes full of stars. Would he kiss her lips? Gu Shijio held her breath as she subconsciously felt that he wanted to kiss her. He slowly bowed his head, and his pinkish lips were getting closer and closer to her face. His warm breath blew on her face, and her heartbeat raced. She subconsciously closed her eyes. His breath was beside her ear. Shijio, I want to eat the barbecue you made. You said you would make a barbecue for me. Gu Shijio was speechless. She opened her eyes and pushed him away. Fine, I'll make it for you. She quickly ran away. Di Fui remained silent. It was a big bonfire. There was a circle of people sitting around the bonfire, and the whole village was present. There was a variety of magical beasts grilled on the bonfire, and the air was filled with the fragrance of meat. The children ran around by the campfire while the women were busy with the barbecue. The men sat around and chatted with each other. The most natural thing to talk about tonight was Di Fui. They speculated about his origins and guessed whether he was a woman. Furthermore, the patriarch had kept the men from bathing today. He said 2 sentences to them. Do you want to go out early? If you want to, don't take a shower today, and quickly leave from here. The old patriarch was still very powerful. Although everyone did not understand what had happened, they still followed the instructions to leave the place. However, everyone guessed in their hearts that it might be that the beautiful newcomer was going to take a shower. This newcomer was obviously very important and might even be a woman. So naturally, the clan leader did not want to let people see this person's body. Since the crowd had discussed Di Fui, they also talked about Stone and their marriage. They gossiped that since the old patriarch personally came out to clear the field for Di Fui to take a bath, it was apparent that he acknowledged their marriage. After all, Stone did not deny it either. The men did not feel anything, but some girls were not willing to accept this truth. Stone had won the hearts of these women. Now that they heard that Stone had a fiancé, naturally, they were unhappy and had an instinctual rejection of Di Fui. They even more dissatisfied that Di Fui might become Brother Stone's wife, and they refuted this view. They said that Brother Stone only liked women and did not like men. Although Di Fui was handsome, he was still a man. When the debate was getting intense, a gust of wind circled the area. A person appeared in the field out of the air. After seeing this person's face, everyone was stunned for a moment. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience. Please click for visiting. The person who came was a woman. She was wearing a navy blue shirt, and her face was very pretty and elegant. Her skin was in a healthy wheat color. No other woman in the area could be compared with her. The most important thing was that no one actually recognized her. Tai Dan and Tai Nyo were on duty tonight. They quickly stood up and surrounded the woman. Who are you? The woman's lips were slightly curved. When Tai Nyo and Tai Dan recognized that smile, she had already asked, "Don't you recognize me?" Her voice was clear, and it was familiar to everyone. Every time they went out to hunt, they always listened to this voice. Palm. The iron sword in Tai Don's hand fell on his own foot. Tai Nyo opened his eyes widely like a big egg. Brother. Brother Stone. Everyone was stunned. Brother. Brother Stone, why are you dressed like a woman? Is it because that young man said that he is your fiancé? A girl in the crowd asked anxiously. Brother Stone, do you really want to marry that person? Even if you want to marry him, there is no need for you to be a woman. He can be the woman. Tai Dan clenched his fist as he spoke, and there was a feeling that his vision of his idol was going to be shattered. I am sorry, everyone. She is not Brother Stone. Stone had succumbed to the fierce beast 6 months ago. It has always been Miss Gu who pretended to be him. The voice of the old patriarch could be heard. The crowd was stunned. Everyone turned back and saw the old patriarch and the young man in purple robes walking side by side. The old patriarch explained the ins and outs of the matter to everyone. It was too shocking. Countless eyes fell on Gu Shijiu in confusion. They could not believe it. The Brother Stone that they had always respected and worshipped was actually a woman, and she could actually play the role so well. Upon examining her behavior over the past 6 months, they started to believe it. She never took a bath with the men, was never bare-chested, and she wore clothes even on hot days. Furthermore, even though so many girls confessed to her, she always rejected them. They initially thought that she had a strange temperament, and now they finally realized that she was actually a woman. The men looked at Gu Shijiu with admiration, disbelief, and of course, adoration. It was rare to see a beautiful girl with such high skills and capabilities. To say, the hearts of those girls were broken. The sweetheart they had been obsessed with was a woman like them. Was there anything more disappointing than this? Some girls involuntarily looked into the distance, they hoped that another Brother Stone would appear from afar. Gu Shijiu naturally understood what was going on in everyone's mind. However, she was still relieved to let this off her chest. She wanted to stop pretending to be someone she was not. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. The noise from the crowd generally subsided, and gradually, everyone accepted her new identity. She said, "You don't have to struggle with whether I am a man or a woman. I am still the same person. I will treat everyone the same, and I will try to bring you out of here and back to the city." Her voice was still as calm as before, with the power to stabilize people's emotion. Thus, the desperate thoughts that the people had of being afraid to be stuck here forever because Stone had died had finally faded. Based on her personality, they knew that she would not leave them alone. Perhaps the prediction was referring to her instead of to the actual son of the clan leader. This girl was a miracle. The old patriarch announced the identities of Gu Shijiu and Di Fui, and that they were immortals who came from heaven. When this news was released, it was just like pouring a scoop of water in a hot oil pan. The crowd almost burst into joy. Initially, people were not very hopeful about whether or not they could get out, but now, they had 2 immortals from the upper bound with them. With the 2 immortals here, they could definitely get out from here. Many eyes were focused on Gu Shijiu and Di Fui. At first, when they heard that Di Fui claimed himself as Stone's fiancé, they thought that it was a joke, but now, they started to believe it. Gu Shijiu pulled Di Fui to her side and openly introduced, "He is my fiancé from the upper bound. He came here, especially to look for me." Di Fui did not expect her to acknowledge his identity so openly in front of the people. He felt pleased and shy at the same time. It seemed that Gu Shijiu was convinced by him and treated him as her fiancé. He was somewhat happy but also guilty. If she recovered her memory one day, would she see him as a liar? After she introduced his identity, she also talked about tomorrow's plan. This plan was exactly what she and Di Fui had discussed at the lakeside. After she clearly stated the plan, everyone cheered again after a short silence. According to Gu Zijia's plan, they might be able to get out of this ghost place tomorrow. It was finally possible to end this savage life. The girls were finally motivated. A girl began to sing and dance. Later, other girls joined, and even the men entered the dancing crowd. Men and women danced together and formed a joyful scene in unison. Gu Shijiu sat on a large stone and concentrated on the barbecue. She took out all the tools she had to barbecue the meat. She wanted to give him the best. She wanted to show her skills in front of him and make him feel secure. Once the meat was grilled, Gu Shizhou personally delivered it to Di Fui. Come, taste my cooking. Di Fui picked up the grilled meat in his hand and looked up at her. Under the moonlight, her eyes were as bright as the moon. He took a bite and praised with his thumbs up, very good. You are a skilled chef. Gu Shizhou smiled. Her smile was like a plump red cherry blossom that bloomed under the stars. She beamed with pride. Di Fui suddenly found that this time, Gu Shizhou seemed to be different from the past. However, he could not think what the difference was. He would soon figure it out. To be honest, the meat of the beast was not delicious. The meat was not tender at all. Although Gu Zijia's cooking skill was good, the raw materials she had at her disposal were too inadequate. In the past, Di Fui would not even take a bite of meat this poorly prepared, but since she was the one who grilled it, he had no choice. He finished one big piece, and his stomach was so full. However, just as he was done, there was another piece handed over to him. Is it enough? One more. Di Fui was speechless. He looked up at the meat and also noticed Gu Zijia's watery eyes. Brother Stone, he will not be able to eat it. Why don't you give it to me? I want to eat. Tai Niu had been staring at the piece of meat. He wanted to try the meat grilled by Gu Shizhou for a long time, but she had never prepared it for him before. Brother Stone, I want a piece too. Your cooking is the best. A muscular girl ran over in excitement. She used to be one of the pursuers of Gu Shizhou. Her name was Chun Chao. She was the head of these unmarried girls. She could bear hardships, fight, and had a strong character. When she wrestled with the men, she would usually win. She had expressed her feelings to Gu Shizhou several times and hinted that she wanted to marry her and have a baby with her. Although she was disappointed when she knew that Brother Stone was a woman, the respect she had toward Brother Stone remained unchanged. Hence, she turned from her pursuer to a big fan. She used to give a lot of things to Gu Shizhou, such as clothes, shoes, handmade iron tools, and even the bedsheets that she wove herself. Therefore, Gu Shizhou had a good relationship with her. Since she was asking her for the meat, she handed it to her without a second thought. Chun Chao smiled happily, she bowed her body and kissed Gu Shizhou on her face. Brother Stone is the best. Gu Shizhou was speechless. Chun Chao had always been looking for a chance to kiss her, but she had never succeeded. Gu Shizhou thought that after she had revealed her true identity, Chun Chao would not want to kiss her again, hence, this action was truly unexpected. Di Fui Handsome's face went black. He did not expect that even after his fiancée revealed her identity as a woman, that she would still attract other women. With a wave of his sleeves, he had already pulled Gu Shizhou into his arms. He took out a white handkerchief and wiped her face. Gu Shizhou did not struggle and just sat in his arms. After he finished wiping her face, she put both of her hands around his neck and chuckled by his ear. Are you jealous? She breathed heavily around his ears, and it made Di Fui aroused. He kissed her cheek. Well, you should not let other people kiss you again in the future, not even women. It will depend on your performance. Gu Shizhou smiled. She liked his arrogant look. Her man had to be brave and bold. Something was strange to her, though. Why did he not kiss her lips since the beginning? Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience. Please click for visiting. Once the men and women here fell in love with each other, they would not only kiss each other but also hold hands. They would even take the opportunity to find dark places to have sex. Since they were already engaged, it was quite normal for them to have sex. So, why did he not dare to kiss her? Were the traditions up in heaven rather conservative? Or was he conservative? Or was he put off by her dark skin? There were several questions in her mind. On the other hand, Di Fui's heart and mind were in turbulence. Gu Shizhou was so enthusiastic and passionate, and he had never seen this side of her before. If he had no scruples in his heart, he would have kissed her from the start. He glanced at Chun Chao, who was still holding the meat given to her by Gu Shizhou. He was upset and said, I still want to eat meat. At this moment, Gu Shijiu was in a very good mood. Okay, I will grill another for you. She snuggled out from his arms and went to get meat. Chun Chao pondered for a moment and then followed after her. She picked up a slice of strip-shaped meat and placed it on Gu Zijia's hand. Brother Stone, give this to him. Gu Shijiu saw the meat and was stunned for a moment. She recognized it. It was the penis of the beast. There was an unwritten rule here that if a girl likes a man, she will grill the penis of the beast for him. If he picked it up, it indicated that he accepted the girl's courtship and could have intimacy at night. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Gu Shijiu lived here for half a year and naturally knew this rule, but should she grill this for him? After all, she only knew him for one day. Chun Chao saw her hesitation and could not help but laugh. She whispered in her ear, Brother Stone, your fiancé is so soft and tender like a girl. Are you afraid that he is not strong enough to pleasure you? Why not give it a try? You can make your decision about marrying him after tonight. The men here had a very good physique, which also included the functionality in that aspect. If they could not please their woman, the female could annul the marriage and abandon their partner. There was no code that a woman could not be married twice here. If a couple could get along well, they would naturally stay together. Otherwise, they would just split. It was quite similar to modern society nowadays. As Gu Shijiu has no other memories outside the life she had lived here for half a year, she naturally followed the rules here, and her mind was relatively open. Hence, eventually, she went to grill the beast's penis. Of course, she did not want to test if Di Fui was good in that aspect, but she wanted to see what he felt about her. She somehow felt that she had had an intimate relationship with him, but she could not remember it. Di Fui had not paid attention to what Gu Shijiu grilled for him. He was chatting with the old patriarch about the next steps to ensure that nothing was missed. After talking with him for a while, the old patriarch admired him even more. This young man was indeed an immortal from the upper bound. He was very detailed and arranged everything in an orderly manner. Every aspect was taken care of very well. When they were discussing, Gu Shijiu came over and handed him a lump of sausage-like meat. There you go. Do you eat this? Di Fui would never reject the food grilled by her, even though he was very full now. As long as she cooked it, he wanted to eat it, so he took the meat from her. Of course. While looking at her, he took a bite of the meat. This meat was very chewy, and it tasted different from the barbecued meat he just ate. However, he did not think much about it. The fierce beasts that were hunted this time were all quite different. Hence, the meat of different species would naturally not be the same. In a brief period, he had consumed half of what Gu Shijiu had given to him. He looked up and praised her. However, all of a sudden, he noticed that the people around him looked at him with a complicated expression. Even the old patriarch looked at him strangely. What happened? What was wrong? He looked at the meat in his hand and looked at Gu Shijiu. He also found that she was strangely staring at him. His fair cheeks then seemed to have a faint blush. Congratulations. Congratulations. Brother Stone, congratulations. No, it is Miss Gu. Congratulations. Those girls had come forward to congratulate Gu Shijiu, while those unmarried men looked at the Di Fui in envy. Since knowing that Gu Shijiu was a woman, many men had been attracted to her. Innately for those men, Gu Shijiu only had her fiancé in her eyes. She had directly given him the symbolic item to seal their intimacy. The only way the men could have a chance is if the outsider failed to please her in bed. Although this young man had a very high level of skill, he was neither sturdy nor wide in the waist. He looked like bamboo, so perhaps he really could not satisfy her. When they thought of this, several men carefully observed Di Fui's lower body. Unfortunately, a rather large robe covered his lower body. Hence, they could not see anything at all. These men usually only wrapped a piece of skin around their lower bodies and often took a shower together. It could be said that the men often knew the size of each other's penises. As for Di Fui, they had never seen him take off his robes before. Di Fui naturally noticed that something was going on, but after all, he did not understand the customs here, and it was inevitable that he was confused. Gu Shijiu sat down beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. You only need to take a few mouthfuls. You don't have to finish it. This thing was very aphrodisiac, even the men who ate just 2 or 3 mouthfuls would already be ready. Those who were stronger would eat half. Besides, there was an unwritten saying here. If a person ate 2 or 3 mouthfuls, it proved that the man could last for 2 or 3/4 of an hour. If a person ate half, it showed that he could continue for half a night. If he ate it all, he could last the whole night. Of course, Di Fui did not understand all these rules, but when her soft body leaned on him, his heart was in slight turbulence. He finished the remaining meat in a few mouthfuls and smiled. No, I won't leave any uneaten. The men in the crowd were stunned. Even the women were speechless. The place went into a strange silence. What happened to these people? The only thing he did was eat a strip of meat. These people looked at him like they were looking at a hero. The old patriarch then suddenly stood up. Okay, well, everyone should dismiss now. I will arrange the formation tomorrow morning. All the people laughed and said, You are right. Okay, let's dismiss. Brother Stone, don't forget to wake up tomorrow. Mr. D, please stay relaxed. You won't be fat even if you eat 1 more mouthful. Don't try too hard. Everyone talked and laughed and went away. In the blink of an eye, only the 2 of them were left on the big field. Di Fui was still very confused. Could anyone tell him what happened? He looked at Gu Shijiu at his side, and Gu Shijiu looked up at him. Gu Shijiu then tiptoed and kissed his cheek. Where do we go to rest? Di Fui was stunned. He originally wanted to return to his own tent to sleep and let Gu Shijiu return to her private room. However, he suddenly recalled that she had lived in the damaged building as the son of the patriarch. Now that she had revealed her true identity, she had nothing to do with the old patriarch. Naturally, she could not go back to the damaged building to sleep. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. Nonetheless, it was late now, and they still had to wake up early. It did not make sense for him to build a home for her now. After thinking about it, he held her hand and walked away. Come with me. Di Fui set up a tent on the grass by the lake. His tent was no ordinary tent. It could be expanded, and he could even control the temperature inside according to the weather. It was very comfortable to sleep in it. He lived very cautiously and was obsessed with cleanliness. He was not used to using other people's things either. Therefore, no matter where he went, he would carry everything he needed with him. Since there was a storage space on his body, no matter how many things he carried, he was not too burdened. He returned to his tent with Gu Shijiu and saw that the bathtub she had previously bathed in had disappeared. There was another arrangement in the tent underneath a snowy long furry carpet on top of an antique bed. Di Fui always pampered himself, so even if he was living alone, the bed he carried with him was a large bed that was good enough for 2 people to roll on it. The white bed had a curtain with a landscape painting on it. There was a small table beside the bed, and on top of the table, there was a colorful clamshell. Inside the shell was a bright pearl that lighted up the bed area. Most of the people here used torches or homemade oil lamps to provide them with light at night. However, due to the scarcity of resources, every stone house was usually dark and dim. People could barely even see. Gu Shijiu was the first to see such a bright pearl, and that was her first time since coming to this land. She could not help but stare into it for a while. Her initial attention was on the pearl, and then she shifted her focus to the clamshell. She felt very familiar with it as if she had raised a mussel as a pet. Di Fui then entered the tent. Gu Shijiu looked up and wanted to say something to Di Fui but found him on another bed. The 2 beds were similar in style, but the drape was different. The curtain of the second bed was light blue, with a row of flying cranes in the sky. The mattresses of the two beds were very soft and very comfortable. Di Fui turned to ask her, Shijiu, which bed do you want to sleep on? Gu Shijiu was stunned by his question. She walked to the other bed and touched the mattress, then she turned and asked him, are we sleeping separately? Di Fui's heart jumped. Did she want to sleep with him? Was it not inappropriate? After all, both of them only reunited for a day, and she had lost all her memories. He did not want to take advantage of her while she had lost her memory. He would want to win her heart in the right way. Moreover, it was very likely that she would regain her memories sooner or later. If he married her and got her body, once she recovers, she would definitely break up with him and despise him. It was more appropriate for him to win her love. This was Di Fui's intention, and also the main reason why he dared not kiss her. He worried that he was not able to control himself if things got intense. He looked at Gu Zijia's watery eyes and smiled. We should sleep separately. You can sleep on the light blue bed. The bedding inside matches your style. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. While he was talking, he wore his sleeping robe and went up on the white bed. He even closed the curtain, which prevented him from being able to see Gu Shijiu. Gu Shijiu was standing by the bed and staring at the white curtain. She had mixed feelings about the situation. After pondering for a moment, she sat opposite him on the bed and asked him very directly, have we not had sex before? Di Fui was slightly stunned. Of course not. He had the intention but did not have the courage. In the past, she only treated him as a kid, and he was not even allowed to be too close to her. Gu Shijiu did not speak any further. She took off her robe and went on to her own bed. Di Fui could faintly see her figure. After he saw her lying down, he let out a sigh of relief. Why do you ask so? Gu Shijiu spoke very softly and said, you have risked so much to come and find me. I believe we must be very in love. Should a loving couple not stay together? Di Fui choked. Shijiu, we will be together eventually. The customs in heaven are different from here. But you. Gu Shijiu suddenly stopped. What? Forget about it. Gu Shijiu did not want to talk about this topic anymore. Humph. She gave him a chance, but he did not grab it. He should not blame her in the future. In fact, she did not particularly want to have sex with him tonight, but she wanted to make sure that Di Fui was loyal to her. It made her extremely happy but also insecure to have such a perfect fiancé in this dangerous place. The law of survival here was to hold on your things firmly. Gu Shijiu did not expect him to be such a gentleman. It seemed that he never had the thought of taking advantage of her. Were the people from the upper bound really this good? Do people in the upper bound have to wait until they get married to be together? Gu Shijiu continued to ask. At this moment, the clamshell had been closed, and the tent was dark. Was it really good for man and woman to stay in the quiet night to discuss this topic? Di Fui felt a little bit warm. He took a breath to calm himself. He responded softly, almost true. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. In fact, the people in the upper bound were not that conservative. Men and women could be together as long as they were engaged. In fact, many immortals got married only after they got pregnant. However, Di Fui did not want to say it out at the moment so that she would not overthink. Unfortunately for Di Fui, Gu Shijiu was not easily fooled. Almost true. Are you suggesting that most people only have sex after they get married, but there are a minority of people that break this rule? Di Fui was speechless. He did not want to lie to her, so he would not deny it. He vaguely explained, I am sleepy. If you have any questions, let's discuss it tomorrow. He closed his eyes and had to control his breathing. Perhaps it because Gu Shijiu had brought up topics that made him uncomfortable. He felt that his surroundings were getting warmer by the minute. Gu Shijiu listened to his breathing and bit her lips into a thin line. Was he trying to keep something from her? Was he unhappy with her dark skin? How did she even come down to this place? How did I get to this lower land? She was curious about this matter. Fortunately, this topic was not that confidential, so Di Fui gave her a general explanation of her participation in the Fairy Flower Festival arranged by the Emperor Immortal. He also explained about how they encountered the earthquake. Of course, he omitted all information about Ling Er, who he had brought over just to make her jealous. Gu Shijiu listened quietly until Di Fui finished explaining. After that, she asked, "You said that I used to have very high spiritual power. How about you? Also, since several people were missing from the festival, are they also here in this place?" Gu Shijiu seemed to always be on top of everything. Di Fui hesitated but still answered her, "Your skill is really high. You are one of the best in the upper bound. There are also some missing immortals, however, I am not too sure where did they fall into. In fact, the other people were not missing but were swallowed by the lava. Their corpses could not even be found. It turned out that she used to be so powerful." Gu Shijiu stretched out her arm and looked at her hand. It was hard to imagine that this hand used to be able to change the sky. All of a sudden, a thought came to her mind. Since my skill is so high, do I have a high status in upper bound? Well, the Emperor Immortal respects you a lot. Chapter 2135. After she heard this sentence, Gu Shijiu was rather pleased. Since my status is so high, the Emperor Immortal should be very anxious when I went missing. Right? Di Fui remained silent. In fact, the Emperor Immortal was not very anxious. Even though he sent people to look for her, it was purely because of Di Fui. After all, Gu Shijiu was a stranger in the upper bound. She was solitary and not subject to anyone's jurisdiction. In fact, the Emperor Immortal had quite the headache due to her presence in the upper bound. Given the option, he would probably prefer not to bump into her so frequently. Nonetheless, Di Fui did not want to offend her. He smiled and said, "Yes, he is very anxious." Gu Shijiu bit her thin lips. "Am I the top talent in the upper bound?" "Of course." Gu Shijiu was surprised by his answer. Meanwhile, Di Fui was feeling even warmer than before, his forehead was covered in sweat. He was somewhat puzzled by the feeling. Although the weather here was scorching, with his cultivation, he never sweated this much even when he was fighting outside. What happened this time? Was the weather here hotter at night than during the day? He was wearing a robe on his body, which was his usual sleeping attire. As it was getting a bit too hot, Di Fui gradually grew frustrated. He untied the collar of his gown and opened it slightly. Besides, the bed was covered by a curtain, so she could not see him. Nevertheless, the situation was quite peculiar to Di Fui. After all, his tent had the function of controlling the internal temperature according to the weather. Was the function broken? He did not have a thermometer and could not detect the temperature outside from his bed. He could only calmly adjust himself to resist the heat and the dryness. However, nothing seemed to have worked, and he finally found that something was wrong. The blood flow in his body was accelerated. A stream of hot air surged in the blood vessels in his body, and it was continually moving. It was concentrated in the lower abdomen, and then the vital parts started to swell. It was the first time Di Fui had this feeling. Although he tried to be calm, his heart was pounding in his chest, as if there was an evil fire in his body that was eager to escape. Di Fui usually had no response to such things because he was so young. Besides, his daily task was to practice. When he went out for any assignment, he would generally just do his assigned task. It was only when he had physical contact with Gu Shijiu that he started to have mild desires, but they were all manageable. This time, however, was different. Di Fui wondered if he was poisoned. He was a physician himself, so he could easily detect if he had been poisoned. In this poor place, Di Fui did not think there was any poison that could actually affect him. Moreover, the people here did not have any reason to poison him. So how could he explain his growing discomfort? His senses were amplified compared to the average person, so his hearing was quite sensitive. It seemed even more sensitive this time. He could hear Gu Zijia's shallow breathing and could even smell the unique fragrance from her body. At first, when he smelled the fragrance from her body, he always felt calm, but now, he was burning up, and his organ was swelling up too. His breathing was abnormal as well, and he suddenly had the urge to rush to the opposite bed to hug the girl sleeping on it. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Besides, he was sure that if he wanted her, she would not refuse. However, he did not want to take advantage of her. He did not want her to hate him after she gets back her memory. His father taught him that if he really liked someone, he must respect that person. He should not do something that he would regret just because of a short-term impulse. Di Fui's body started to sweat profusely while his heart pounded away. His brain quickly flashed through what he had consumed today, and suddenly, he remembered the particular meat strip that had caught the attention of the crowd. It looked like a meat strip but did not really taste like it. At that time, he did not have any doubts because he understood that Gu Shizhou would not harm him. However, he was now suspicious of the meat strip. What the hell was it? The expressions of those people were a bit strange at the time. Those words that were mentioned when they left were also confusing. Did the strip of meat represent something? Di Fui was not naive. When he thought of this incident, he suddenly understood. Was that thing a penis? Did it belong to one of the beasts? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that his assumption was right. His handsome face turned pale. He had not eaten this before in his entire life, and he never expected her to give him this food. The effect of this aphrodisiac was really obvious. It was comparable to the legendary deer blood. Di Fui took a deep breath as he knew that the effect of this kind of thing could not be eliminated by meditation. There was only one way for him now, a cold bath. Thank goodness there was a big lake outside the tent. At this time, there would not be anyone there. Hence, Di Fui quickly got out of his bed and promptly got out of the tent. However, all of a sudden, he froze momentarily. Many men and women were standing outside his tent. These people naturally came to eavesdrop on the situation. They wanted to hear how the night would be like between Brother Stone and the young man. The people here were open. Most of the men here felt that, when they had sex, the louder the woman screamed, the more heroic the man was. It was something to be proud of, so they would not suppress themselves. When a man and woman were having sex, the movements were hardly subtle. Some of the women even screamed until half of the village could hear them. Those damaged stone houses were not very soundproof. However, Di Fui's tent was soundproof. Even if it was turned upside down, no one could hear anything from the outside. Therefore, the more people could not hear, the closer they approached the tent. Slowly they came close to the entrance of the tent and almost put their ears on the door to listen. They naturally did not expect Di Fui to come out all of a sudden after consuming so much eat, so they were not able to react in time, and both of the parties bumped into each other. What are you doing here? Di Fui squinted his eyes. He was unhappy. Currently, his aura was intense and almost made the surrounding temperature drop by a few degrees. The villagers were naturally embarrassed. Some tried to laugh as they thought of an excuse. We are here. Here to take a shower. Find authorized novels in webnovel faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Yes, we are here to take a shower. To prove that they were not lying, they turned around and jumped into the lake. After they jumped into the lake, they realized that they had not taken off their clothes. Chun Chao was one of them. She was bold. She looked at Di Fui and said, Mr. Di should be very busy for the whole night. How come you have emerged in less than half an hour? Di Fui was shocked. What? You have eaten the entire penis of a beast, which means you can last for the whole night with Brother Stone. Now it seems that Mr. D could not last through the night. By the way, it seems like both of you have no movement at all. Did both of you actually? Chun Chao went straight to the point, and all eyes stared at Di Fui. The lady asked, can you actually do it? Di Fui was stunned. Before he could say anything, the door opened behind him, and Gu Shijiu came out. Chen Chao, he is an outsider, so he does not understand these things. Please don't speak nonsense. Chen Chao seemed to understand something. So he does not know anything. He seems like an adult already, how can he not know anything about this? Even a kid between 14 to 15 would understand this, Gu Shijiu frowned. I meant that he doesn't understand the customs here, not that he doesn't understand that thing. Well, let's go, you all have to get out from here tomorrow. You need to keep your strength, don't eavesdrop here. Chen Chao did not want to disobey her, so she turned and left. However, before she went, she still muttered a few words, he doesn't understand the customs here, but the effect of the penis is so powerful, how could he not respond? Maybe his penis can't really function. Brother Stone, you can't marry this man. In fact, Brother Tainyo is good, he likes you, Gu Shijiu was dumbfounded. She patted on Chen Chao's back. Let's go, I know what to do. Chen Chao left with the other girls. As for the men, naturally, they would not really stay so long in this lake. After jumping into the lake, they swam to the other side and left. The surroundings finally returned to its usual night tranquility. Only the wind could be heard blowing across the lake. Gu Shijiu heaved a sigh of relief. Were you intending to take a cold bath? You can go now. She stopped before she could finish the sentence as Di Fui was looking at her with his dazzling eyes. There seemed to be a vortex whirling in his pupils. It was almost as if he was staring into her soul. She was inexplicably flustered and took a step back. You should go and take your bath. Before she could not finish her sentence, her wrist had been grabbed by Di Fui. His palm was so hot that Gu Shijiu was shocked. He slowly said, Shijiu, do you really want to get me? His voice was magnetic and carried an air of dominance. It made Gu Shijiu very nervous. However, she did not want to conceal her thoughts. She bravely looked up at him. You are my fiancé, aren't you? Di Fui bit his lips and asked, do you love me? Love? The situation turned very awkward as Gu Shijiu did not grasp the concept of love. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. Once the men and women had a good impression of each other, they could essentially hook up. She paused to think about the answer and finally replied, I think I like you. She was certainly not disgusted by him. But did that necessarily mean that she liked him? Furthermore, she did not feel this way toward other men here. What do you like about me? Gu Shijiu looked at his sparkling eyes after hearing this question. Did he want her to praise him? You're handsome, have a good set of skills, and you are good to me. Also, you are my fiancé. Di Fui was disappointed. That's it? Gu Shijiu frowned. Weren't these enough? What if I'm not your fiancé? Gu Shijiu raised her eyebrows. This was an exciting topic. If he were not her fiancé, she would naturally not to be so close to him. She was not a flirty girl. The fingers that Di Fui held on her wrist were getting tighter. Answer me, if I am not your fiancé, would you still want to be with me? Of course not. Gu Shijiu blurted. Di Fui fingers went stiff. Do you not like me? Gu Shijiu frowned. I really like you, but this is only because you are my fiancé. If you are not, then you and I have only known each other for one day. Even if I like you, how much could it be? Di Fui's eyes went dark, but he knew that Gu Shijiu was right. Because of her condition, she technically had only known him for a day. Even if she liked him, how much could it be? Did she love him as much as he did? He could do anything for her, but would she do the same? He took a breath and looked into her eyes. Shijiu, although you have lived here for half a year, you do not belong to her. You belong in heaven. In that world, men and women would only be together when they really love each other and have an intimate relationship. The reason why I refuse to touch you is that I don't want you to regret it later. Di Fui had to cautiously restrain himself from pulling her into his embrace and kissing her. After all, Gu Shijiu was smart enough. She was sensitive enough to smell the unusual atmosphere. In our world, is it only when men and women are in love that they can get engaged? Are we in love in heaven? Di Fui remained silent, but his eyes could not conceal the truth. He did not want to lie to her, but he did not know how to answer this question. Perhaps his short silence made her suspicious. Why are you not answering me? Don't you love me in heaven? Are you here just because of the Emperor Immortal? No, I like you. I like you no matter where you go. My presence here has nothing to do with the Emperor Immortal. Gu Shijiu was relieved. This was enough for her. As long as he really loved her, it did not matter whether she loved him or not. She believed that after they get along with each other for some time, she would fall in love with him again. After all, she liked him very much now, and she was pleased knowing that he was her fiancé. She suddenly plunged into his arms, hugged his waist, and looked up at his face. She kissed his chin. Fui, it's enough. I like you. With her soft body in his arms, it would naturally make any man get excited. However, Di Fui was now in a state of having a burning desire. In his mind, the last string of his rationale was in jeopardy. I am afraid. I am afraid. I am afraid that one day you will regret it and that you will hate me. I will never regret the decision. Gu Zijia's eyes were glittering while she stared at him. Unless you really don't want me? How could he not want her? He wanted her so badly. Before Di Fui decided what to do, Gu Shijiu suddenly put her hands around his arms. She pulled his head lower and kissed his lips. She had been thinking about doing so for a long time. His lips were pink in color, and the curvature was very beautiful. When she knew that he was her fiancé, she had noticed his lips and wanted to know how did it felt to kiss it. After all, she had been acting like a man for half a year. She must be finding it tiring to continue doing so. Meanwhile, a man would also usually grab what they want, which is what Gu Shijiu intended to do at this time. Di Fui's arms and lips were hot. When she placed her lips on his, he was a little stiff. Although Gu Shijiu was generally very brave and daring, she had lost her memory. She never really saw the process of having sex here but had only seen people kiss. Gu Zijia's small mouth attached to his lips, and she used her lips to lick his lips. This was what she saw when she took a glance at people kissing. Now, finally, she had someone for her to try this physical gesture of affection with. His lips seemed rather rough compared with hers. When she rubbed them a few times, she felt that her lips were a little bit flustered. Although her heartbeat had accelerated, and she was excited, the overall feeling was not as good as what she expected. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. After the advances made by Gu Shijiu, she felt that the gesture was enough to convey her affection. With flagging interest, she wanted to let go and take a step back. Nonetheless, before she could retreat, he hugged her waist tightly and pulled her back into his embrace. In the blink of an eye, he was already carrying her in his arms. Your kisses do not count. Let me teach you the proper way, Di Fui said hoarsely. Soon, they were already back in the tent. Swiftly, he put her down on the bed. While she was still caught in a dazzle, he already found her lips and was kissing her passionately. It was a very intense feeling, which was different from the way Gu Shijiu had planted soft kisses on his cheeks earlier. He kissed her with contact between their tongues and swirled his tongue in her mouth while occasionally biting her lips. With passionate kisses, both their hearts pumped with excitement. Gu Shijiu did not know what to think. She had basically lost her ability to think clearly and could only feel the blood rushing in her body. He held her down on the bed, having their bodies separated only by mere pieces of clothing. It was the most primitive form of attraction, but it was enough to make Gu Zijia's heart race. Her cheeks were flushing crimson red. For the first time, she truly felt the difference between the physical structures of a man and a woman. Her body went weak with every passionate kiss, and she finally understood how a deep kiss should be. It was, indeed, fascinating. She could hardly breathe, being completely absorbed in his kisses. She could feel her blood racing, with her heart afire. Deep down, she knew she liked the way he kissed her. Joy filled her heart to the fullest, and she was starting to be obsessed with it. She returned his kisses with passion, too. Yearning for more, she could not contain her desire any longer. It was as though she had just reunited with her long-lost love after a long period of being separated. Driven by her suppressed desire, she now only wanted to have their bodies brought into one. She wanted him inside her body, so he would never disappear or ever leave her again. Their bodies were leaning close together. She could obviously feel his physical changes. He panted heavily while his eyes filled with immense passion. He could barely contain his burning desire for her anymore. After a while, his loose clothes were now wide open. Her palms were directly on the surface of his burning chest. Her body temperature rose, too, along with the heat coming from his bare chest. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Shijo. He stopped his passionate kissing and called out her name. There were uncertainties in his eyes, and it seemed like he was trying to pull himself away. I do not wish for you to hate me, someday, he said, unsure if it was meant for her or himself. Gu Shijo had completely lost her senses at the time. Her logical reasoning broke down, and she did not answer him. Instead, she pulled her clothes wide open and made their bodies touch. With her arms around his neck, she whispered, "Don't worry. I am very happy. I want you. I am the one who needs you. Unless you really cannot do it." Her hot breaths finally put Di Fui's mind at ease. He wanted her so badly and was ready to risk everything. Even at the end of the world, he would still make love to her. He hugged her tightly and said in return, "I will show you how good I really am." The temperature continued to rise in the tent. They continued to undress, piece by piece. When their bodies finally came into one, Gu Shijiu responded with a quiet moan. "Is it painful?" Di Fui stopped moving. Caught in a daze, Gu Shijiu felt that what they were doing now was very familiar. It was as if she had been through the same thing before. She could still feel the pain. After all, his physical body was different from that of an ordinary man. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Nevertheless, the pain was nothing to someone like her, who had spent her lifetime fighting beasts. Hence, the pain was bearable. She was only overwhelmed by the sense of familiarity. She pulled him closer and asked, "Have we ever done this before?" Di Fui frowned, for he was not expecting her sudden question. He actually thought that she was in pain. "Silly, you are still a virgin. Your body clearly tells that you are not experienced," he answered in clear disbelief. He could already tell that she was still a virgin, but Gu Shijiu kept suspecting that she had a husband. The discovery of her hymen proved her virginity well. It could not be faked. His mother had once told him about the surgery to reconstruct the hymen, which only existed in the modern world where she came from. However, Gu Shijiu was not the kind of woman who would go for the surgery to restore the hymen if she had slept with the one she truly loved. In this case, she and Huang Tu must be unmarried. Perhaps, Huang Tu was not her husband and only a lover. Di Fui was very relieved at the realization. The guilt in his heart was thus greatly reduced. At this stage, nothing else mattered anymore, not even his guilt. With his arms tightly placed around her, he felt as though he had acquired the most precious treasure ever to exist. He stared lovingly at her crimson cheeks and planted a passionate kiss on her lips. "Shijiu, I will never give up on you, under any circumstance, even when you feel like killing me someday." Their bodies finally joined into one, casting their overlapped shadows in a wavy motion on the side of the tent. Every moment was like a recreation. Every instant felt like a new beginning. It was late at night, but in their tent, it was as though the beginning of spring. Their love filled the air. Once started, they could never go back. Without any concern, they let go of any constraints and unleashed their most intimate desires. They gave their all, and there was no way back. With their fingers interlocked, they clung tightly to each other. Surely, Di Fui did not make her stay up the entire night. Firstly, it was only her first time, so she was not able to endure too many intimate times in a row. Only after 2 hours, she started to ask him to stop. If they really made love for the entire night, her body would be numb the entire next day. Secondly, they had to guide the people out of the place tomorrow. Hence, they had to reserve their strength for the escape. When the sexual effect of the special sausage finally faded, Di Fui agreed to let Gu Shijiu sleep in his arms. She had been begging for him to stop for a while now. Without any spiritual power, Gu Shijiu became easily exhausted. She closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep, almost instantaneously. Nothing could ever wake her up. Before she slept, she held his hand tightly with their fingers crossed. "From now on, you are mine. You are not allowed to leave," she murmured. Finally, she slept with relief. There was a smile on her adorable face, even when she was asleep. For a very long while, Di Fui was unable to fall asleep. He watched blankly at her face while she slept. Finally, the affection was mutual. Di Fui did not expect things to escalate so quickly. Was this affection considered mutual? What if Gu Shijiu regained her memory? Would she blame him for taking her advantage of her while she was unable to think and defend for herself? Would she consider him as a wicked man and cut ties with him? He knew that what he did was not appropriate, even a little mean and dirty, but he really could not contain his feelings for her anymore. He closed his eyes and planted a swift kiss on her eyelashes. Utterly confused, he could not explain his obsession for her. She preoccupied his mind to a troubling extent. In the dark, he tried to study his palm. A sudden idea came to light. Could he be the reincarnation of Huang Tu? Could he be the one that she so desperately searched for? Di Fui used to deny the possibility because he did not want to become a replacement. He was not happy to be a substitute, even for the man from his previous life. However, he changed his mind about it now. It would not be entirely bad if he were really Huang Tu in his previous life. If that were the case, she would still choose to be with him even when she regained her memory. But what if he was not? He closed his eyes in denial. He had to stop overthinking before getting overwhelmed. Relieved, he took a look at their interlocking fingers. Anyway, he was the one she truly relied on and truly adored at the moment. Without Huang Tu in the picture, perhaps she could really fall in love with him. In life, it was more important to hold on to the present. Di Fui looked at Gu Shijiu and planted another gentle kiss on her soft, mildly swollen lips. "Shijiu, forgive me." Even in her sleep, Gu Shijiu furrowed her brows in a painful expression. "Pain," she murmured. Was she still in pain? Di Fui had cleaned her up after their lovemaking. Nonetheless, no matter how careful he was, he knew that he would still hurt her a little, under the strong influence of his sexual desire. Wanting to reduce the pain, Di Fui applied some medicine to her private area. The drug worked like magic. Within half an hour, the affected area was not swollen anymore. However, upon hearing her murmuring in her dream, he had to recheck her private part. There was nothing serious. The soft swell of her genital area was no longer there, so she was not supposed to feel any pain anymore. "Where does it hurt?" he asked in a caring tone. "My whole body aches," she answered accordingly. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Di Fui did not know what to say. Instead, he chuckled at her confession. It was normal for her body to ache, as a result of their passionate love. Therefore, he rose and gave her body a thorough massage. She was deep in her sleep, so he was able to move her limbs around without waking her up. If someone were to come and carry her away right now, she would still be sleeping soundly. "Silly, you are not cautious enough of your surroundings. How did you manage to survive up to this point in your life?" He flicked his finger gently on the temple of her head as a warning. Intuitively, she caught his hand and pulled it to the side of her face. "Fui, you are not allowed to run away ever again," she said in a quiet murmur. "Don't worry. I will not leave your side, even if you try to keep me away. Shijo, you and I have come to this stage of our relationship. I will surely marry you when we go back," he made his promise. He could barely suppress his great delight. She called out his name even in her sleep. Was it a sign that she truly cared for him, or was even in love with him? Have you done this before? You are very, very experienced. Di Fui was at a loss for words. He swore to God that it was his first time. He was experienced only because he was once in her dream of transient love. That was when he learned how to make love to her in a proper manner. Also, he made many friends from his extensive travels, these naturally included some perverted ones. His perverted friends had shown him all kinds of illustration, with each depicting different sex positions. He was not really interested back then, but he could not help it due to his good memory. Besides, he believed he would not regret it when the knowledge came in handy. The agreed meeting time with the villagers was at 5 in the morning, so she had to wake up 15 minutes before that. Di Fui thought that she would be too tired to wake up in time, so he was ready to wake up before her. For the entire night, he could barely sleep, but he snoozed off just before sunrise. He opened his eyes only to see her staring straight back at him. Surprisingly, she woke up on her own. However, she seemed a little confused. Di Fui was ready to greet her, but she immediately retreated. "Who are you?" Di Fui was shocked. Had she failed to recognize him only after a night? Before he introduced himself to her again, her memory finally came back to her. She knocked gently on her temple as a sign of her forgetfulness. "Oh, right. You are my fiancé. I am engaged to a man. I cannot believe that we slept together." Di Fui was shocked, yet again. He answered in a sarcastic tone, "Are you that surprised? Have you forgotten about what happened last night?" His smile was not exactly friendly. In fact, he seemed a little offended. Gu Shijiu was completely awake by now and realized her reaction just now was indeed a little mean. Everything happened too suddenly. After all, we have only met for a day. I am already used to sleeping alone, so I was bewildered to find your presence here, which explained my shocked expression. Things will get better when I get used to it, she quickly reassured. Di Fui did not answer. He only stared fixedly at her. His intense gaze sent chills down her spine. With a quick response, she added, "Don't worry. Your virginity will not be lost in vain. I will be responsible for you from now on." Di Fui was speechless, for she had obviously stolen his line. Suddenly, he let out a charming smile and teased, "How are you going to bear the responsibility?" Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. Gu Shijiu did not hesitate in her answer, "I will marry you. Let us get married when we finally settle down." "Right, that is what you said. You are not allowed to go back on your words." Di Fui pointed his little finger at her and requested, "Come. Let us make a pinky promise." Gu Shijiu could not hold back her amusement. "Are you a child? Why are you still obsessed with the idea of pinky promises?" Her opinion was what Di Fui cared about the most. He put down his hand and turned his body around. "You are the one who is a child." Gu Shijiu was not interested in the pointless argument. She rose to get ready. "It is almost time. We should get up now." In a few minutes, she was well groomed and ready to go. Di Fui, on the other hand, took his time. Piece by piece, he put on his clothes slowly. Gu Shijiu had the chance to see his well-built body, that included his sculpted chest, flat tummy, and a pair of long legs. The man's perfect body impressed her. With clothes, he did not appear bulky. Without clothes, he was not too skinny, either. His body shape was far more attractive than every other man in the clan. She could not keep her eyes off him. Perverted woman, have you seen enough? De Fuy's remark finally pulled her back from her preoccupied mind. She suddenly realized that she had been staring blankly at him for the past few minutes. Gu Shizhou responded with a playful giggle. With a step forward, she then placed her hand on his bare chest and whispered, "You are not allowed to show others how charming you really are." De Fui was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, Gu Zijia proceeded to dress him properly by covering his entire body, all the way up to his neck. De Fui looked at her and answered softly, "Of course, my beauty is strictly reserved for you." Then, he took her hand and teased again, "Are you trying to seduce me by being touchy? Do you want to have it again?" Gu Shizhou did not answer, but she could feel his breaths next to her ear. Soon, her ears began to flush. She coughed and pushed him away. "We shall not." "All right, you better be quick. I will go outside and have a quick check." She turned and ran away. De Fui could not help but laugh at her. She was obviously trying to conceal her awkwardness. He thought that she had forgotten how it felt to be shy after playing the role of a man for too long. When Gu Shizhou arrived at the plaza, it was already crowded. The people there were engaged in a very heated discussion. The subject of discussion was all about how Brother Stone's night went. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster updates, better experience please click for visiting. Brother Stone will definitely be late after spending the night with Mr. D. It is hard to tell. They did not look like they were ready. Perhaps, they were not ready when we met them, but what happened after we left was an unknown. After all, there were a man and a woman alone in the room. Things will get heated up very quickly. Even if they did it, Brother Stone will still be energetic today. Mr. D looks thin and weak. He probably did not last long enough to exhaust Brother Stone. It cannot be. I saw that Mr. D was very strong when he took down the phantom beasts. His physical strength must be excellent. Ha! Even if he has good physical strength, his body certainly looks the opposite. His size is probably small. The chattering continued over breakfast. Tai Dan looked up and caught Gu Shizhou standing in the shade. "Brother Stone," he greeted with a trembling voice. Gu Shizhou did not hold back. "You all seem to have a lot of free time, so now I am asking each and every one of you to do 500 push-ups." The crowd was utterly surprised. They sighed in disbelief, but none of them dared to disobey her. They had, after all, got used to her commands. At every opportunity, Brother Stone would give them training to improve their strength. It was necessary to perform 100 push-ups every morning, but the amount suddenly increased by 5 times. They saw Gu Shizhou walking comfortably without any tottering movement. A sudden realization came to their mind. Brother Stone must be frustrated by the dissatisfaction of last night's events, they thought. It was only speculation, none of their thoughts was going to change their unavoidable training. When the latecomers arrived, the first thing that they saw was a large group of men performing push-ups in unison. It was a rather spectacular view. After 500 push-ups, all of them were covered entirely in sweat. Exhausted, all of them lay unmoving on the ground. Gu Shizhou gave them a quick look and said scornfully, "Why don't you stand? Have you had enough? Do you want another 500 push-ups?" Swiftly, all of these motionless bodies rose and stood. None of them dared to object. De Fui suddenly appeared from a corner and saw their tired faces full of sweat. "What you had is only an appetizer. It is time for you to move your body around. Coming up next, be prepared to have your main entree," he said with a sarcastic smile. They started to tremble in fear. Many stared at him anxiously. Mr. D looked lively and energetic. Mr. D looked lively and energetic. He spoke to them in such grace. "I am not as good-tempered as Brother Stone. What you are about to have is a set of arrangements regarding the array formation. You are required to memorize everything in an hour. I will come back and check later." If anyone fails to accomplish the aforementioned condition, you may leave the team. The crowd was shocked. They were not prepared to obey him so readily, so they did not take his words very seriously. Briefly, they answered with a low spirit. Di Fui threw them a look of disdain. All of you sound so weak. Can't you survive the mere 500 push-ups? Are you out of your strength already? The men were astonished by his sarcastic remarks. They believed that he must have heard their perverted discussion earlier, so he was here to give them an eye for an eye. All of them were young men full of vigor and vitality, so they were not ready to be underestimated. Someone expressed his disapproval. I am not a weak man. Forget about the 500 push-ups, I can even do a 1000 and still be a great man. The man who spoke was Tainyo. He was indeed a man of steel. There he stood, solid like a mountain. His physical strength was the best among the men. Certainly, he looked down on Di Fui the most. He thought that the newcomer had stolen his favorite person and that Di Fui was no match for Brother Stone. Di Fui smiled in return. His smile was a charming one, like a breeze of warm spring air sweeping across the land. However, what came out of his mouth was not as equally heartwarming as his smile. That is great. You may proceed with a 1000 push-ups. I would really love to see how great of a man you are. Tainyo had not realized that his words were actually a trap. He was not ready to commit to his quick promise. Indignant, he threw Di Fui an angry look and complained to Gu Shizhou instead, Brother Stone, I think we should practice the array formation now. Gu Shizhou gave him a quick look and answered slowly, I think your push-ups are our priority at the moment. The crowd looked at Di Fui in disbelief. They could not believe that Brother Stone would put the relationship before brotherhood. Gu Shizhou then swept her eyes across the crowd and gave them a stern warning, from now on, you have to listen to Mr. Dis command if you wish to leave this place safely. Any violators will be severely punished. I want all of you to be in high spirit from this moment onwards. Don't embarrass us all as a clan. Di Fui had to give them a lot of orders to perform different tasks. If they chose to disobey him, their entire mission would most probably fail as a result of their distrust of one another in the team. Therefore, Gu Shizhou had to make Di Fui the authority figure. The clan leader was very well aware, so he spoke before the crowd as motivation before the journey. His speech was long and inspiring, but the crowd was not very focused on his words. Instead, they slowly fell asleep, one by one. Just when one of the men was about to snore out loud, the clan leader finally ended his speech. The men finally understood the importance of Di Fui's role. They were now ready to listen to him. Di Fui did not let his expression show. He only looked at their faces briefly with a smile. His smile was quite sarcastic. The sight of his smiling face sent chills to their hearts. Finally, they stopped joking around with him. Before Di Fui taught them the steps, he had to pull Gu Shizhou aside and make her sit on a rock. Then, he presented a few dishes and a bowl of porridge to her as her breakfast. The setup attracted many hungry souls. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates, better experience please click for visiting. Throughout the years, they had only been surviving on the meat of the beasts or some simple boiled vegetables, so they had never seen such exquisite dishes. They stared longingly at the food. Chapter 2145, One at a time, they took the beasts down easily. Some thought that the dishes could only be found in heaven. Others believed that the dishes had a special ability, which was to increase one's lifespan or even to grant immortality. However, they also knew that Mr. D would not take a lot of food with him. Only Brother Stone was entitled to taste the dishes. They could only smell the food from aside. They knew very well that the food was not for them, but the smell was irresistible. It was heavenly. Seeing that they were all attracted to the smell, Di Fui said, if you can make it out successfully, each set of these dishes will be yours, he motivated. His words were much more encouraging than the clan leader's heartfelt speech. Their eyes brightened with hope again. Gu Shizhou could see that all of them were instantly hyped up. They focused entirely on the lessons given and learned very quickly. Usually, they would need at least an hour to memorize these steps. This time, they managed to memorize all the crucial details in half an hour. All they required now was practice. When the lesson ended, Gu Shijiu was also done with her breakfast. Together, they left, leaving the men behind to practice the array formation. Everything went according to plan. Gu Shijiu would work with Di Fui to ensure the execution of the plan went well. She teleported with him to the outskirts of the valley. A few phantom beasts were triggered while they made their escape, but Gu Zijia's teleportation skill allowed her to flee very quickly. Before the beasts could catch them, they were already long gone. An hour later, they were at the wizardry barrier, fogged by a layer of red mist. At the edge of the barrier, there were dozens of phantom beasts lingering around. Upon seeing them, the beasts rushed like a swarm of bees. Gu Zijia's physical condition was not as good as before. She could handle 1 or 2 phantom beasts at a time, but definitely not a bunch of them. The large group of beasts was the cause of her injury the last time she came by the edge of the wizardry barrier. But this time was different, she had Di Fui by her side. Di Fui could not teleport, but he had strength. Also, his spiritual power was very advanced, hence, he could perform many killer moves. Gu Shijiu was responsible for teleporting Di Fui to the side of each beast so that he could kill it with his sword. Together, they coordinated perfectly. One at a time, they took the beasts down easily. The phantom beasts were nothing to their formidable combination. They finished with the beasts in less than 15 minutes. At least, they could not see any beasts from where they stood. Gu Shijiu could finally heave a sigh of relief. Although she was not the one responsible for the killing, teleporting both of them around was equally exhausting. Nonetheless, her physical strength was much better than usual. Normally, frequent teleportation would wear her out very quickly, but this time, even with an additional man, it did not seem to trouble her. She only sweated a little. Was she in high spirits as a result of the recent happy events? Did their perfect coordination make everything feel effortless? Was it because of what happened last night in the tent? She was told that having sex was very exhausting to both men and women. Usually, both partners would experience a minor decline in their spiritual power the next day. Some women could not even leave their beds. Yet, she was unusually agile today, so her strength must have nothing to do with sex. After brief contemplation, she soon escaped her thoughts. She saw Di Fui studying the red fog intensely. Occasionally, he would move his fingers swiftly as if making calculations. His purple robe swayed gracefully in the gusts of wind. The man was divine. He was handsome, even more so when he was focused. Chapter 2146, It was nice to feel protected. She did not have to stay close to him, but she did so anyway. Naturally, she wrapped her arm around his and said, "Can you figure this thing out?" I tried to poke it with a finger, but my finger ended up getting burned. Di Fui took her hand to observe it. "Which finger did you use?" "This one." Gu Shijiu showed him her left hand. "I was concerned that the red fog might be poisonous, so I used my left hand." Di Fui was not impressed. "Your left fingers are still your fingers, silly." He checked the affected area and realized that it was no longer swollen or reddened. Gently, he gave it a rub. Gu Zijia's heart melted. "It is fine." The pain was nothing. The red fog is the chaotic fog caused by the poisonous gas from the evil beast known as chaos. It is extremely poisonous, so you must not touch it. While explaining, Di Fui also delivered one of the dead bodies into the fog. White smoke appeared while the body corroded into a pool of pus. Gu Shijiu was speechless. She did not realize that the red fog was so deadly. Why did her finger remain intact? She could not help but look at her finger again. There is no need to think about it. Your body is different. You have developed immunity, so normal poisons will not do any harm on you. Even without spiritual power, the quality of her physical body remained the same as a celestial being with immunity against many poisons. Moreover, She was keen on messing around with different poisons all the time, so her level of immunity was already at its peak. Thus, the poison was not deadly, at least to her. Although the red fog was not harmful to her, she would still have to find a way to break through the barrier. Can you break down the chaotic fog? Gu Shijiu placed all her hope on Di Fui. He seemed invincible, after all. He took a lute in his hand and answered, I should be able to. Then, he pulled her close and said, you should stop running around and distracting me. Gu Zijia's eyes danced with merriment. Don't worry. I will stay close, she reassured him with a firm nod. Her heart was filled with warmth from his caring gesture. She had always been the leader. Under many dangerous circumstances, she was always the one standing in the front line. She used to be the one who warned others not to run around. Now, she finally found someone to take over her role. His gentle reminder was heartwarming. It was nice to feel protected. She enjoyed it, especially when it came from the man she cared about. Gu Shijiu could not hide her joy. Her eyes were bent into a delicate arch as a sign of her great pleasure. Di Fui took a step back and placed the lute by his lips. Smoothly, he played the tune. The sound of the lute was refreshing. His graceful fingers moved swiftly around the lute to create a flow. Loudly, the sound echoed in the air. Gu Shijiu looked at his lute in astonishment. Was the lute the key of breaking down the red fog barrier? The sound of the lute was rather odd. It did not have any specific melody, but it did sound like the archaic Chinese rhymes with special effects and unique beats. She enjoyed it very much. She tried to remember the tune so that she could play it for him in the future. Even though the sound of the lute was quite loud, it did not attract any phantom beasts. The land remained peaceful, and the air was filled with only the tune. However, a few moments later, Gu Shijiu caught a terrifying sight. The enormous red fog started to flow. Gradually, the swirling slowly revealed a massive being. Gu Shijiu clenched her fists tightly in response. Chapter 2147, she wanted to have a closer look at first sight. The appearance of the massive being very much resembled a boar, but without a head. It appeared as though its 4 legs acted like pillars to support its round and giant body. The color of its body was entirely red like the fog. It was a strange yet terrifying sight. Gu Shijiu took a step back to cover Di Fui behind her. Tightly, she held the sword in her hand. As the red fog was very potent, Gu Shijiu naturally assumed that this creature possessed great powers. As soon as it was formed, strong gusts of wind took over the land like a storm. Gu Shijiu felt that it looked somewhat familiar, but could not recall the encounter. It is chaos, Di Fui communicated with Gu Shijiu via directed audio. Gu Zijia's jaw dropped. Is it one of the 4 ancient ferocious beasts? This is not its original body. It is merely an illusion, formed from the power of its soul. Don't worry. I will take it down and make the poisonous barrier disappear. Gu Shijiu was relieved. With her memory loss, she had literally no knowledge about the beast. She only knew about the phantom beasts and some other things about animals, which she acquired from the clan leader. The rest remained unknown. Her instinct told her that the beast was an exceptionally dangerous one. Will it behave like the phantom beasts and transform into its original form? Gu Shijiu was concerned. Hard to tell, Di Fui only answered briefly. The tune of the lute became more complicated. Therefore, Gu Shijiu did not want to interrupt him. She continued to stand in between Di Fui and the creature with a sword in her hand. He was busy playing the lute, so he would not be able to defend himself if the beast were to attack him. Surely, she would not be able to fight it either. But at least she could teleport with him to somewhere safe. The red fog had been swirling vigorously to complete the illusion created by chaos. As soon as it was formed, it seemed very violent and agitated, as if it were about to destroy everything in its way. With every step it took, the ground would tremor. Di Fui's lute was able to calm it down. Along with the tune, it started moving its body in gentle sways. The more complicated the tune, the calmer it seemed. In fact, the swirling of the red fog around it was gradually reduced, too. Gu Shizhou did not know what was actually happening, but she could tell that it was a good sign. If everything went smoothly, they would be able to break through the red fog wizardry barrier within an hour. Having some sense of relief, Gu Shizhou slowly kept her sword. In a blur, she caught something shimmering on its feet, as attractive as a gem. What was that? Driven by her curiosity, Gu Shizhou stepped forward to have a closer look. That was when everything changed. Chaos seemed to detect something and stopped following the rhythm of the tune. Then, a pair of bloody red wings appeared on its smooth, shiny back. It stretched its wings out, causing a storm. The tip of its wing continued to move and cause more troubles. Beware! Gu Shizhou heard Di Fui shouting out loud. Soon, she was dragged to the back by Di Fui. The bloody red fog came rolling at both of them. Gu Shizhou was shocked, but fortunately, her agility remained. Swiftly, she grabbed Di Fui's arm and teleported. The teleportation took them more than 10 feet away from the incoming danger. Chapter 2148, Stand Still, Roar. Chaos made its displeasure clear. Gu Shizhou finally found out the source of the animal howling. It was from this beast. Although the volume was different, the pitch was more or less the same. Before she realized it, the beast finally revealed itself from the constraint of the red fog. It jumped right out and landed on the ground. Gu Shizhou then realized that the beast had 8 pairs of eyes, all hidden under its wings. The colors were different in all of its eyes. There was red, black, golden yellow, and brownish gray. Every pair of eyes shone brightly under the light, even glistening like the charm of a gem. The look in its eyes, however, was rather ruthless. All 8 pairs of eyes were on Gu Shizhou. The terrifying sight sent a cold chill down her spine. Frozen, she stood still. Unable to move her hands and legs at all, she felt as if she had been tied down. Despite her encounter with many different beasts in the Shura world, this was her first time seeing such a brutal one. Terrified, she wanted to teleport to safety with Di Fui. If you do not wish to see everyone die, stand still. Di Fui spoke to her in a hoarse voice. He raised his arm and circled Gu Shizhou in a protective layer. Wait here patiently. Gu Shizhou remained quiet. The following events were indeed soul-stirring. Struck with fright, she crossed her fingers anxiously. The moment Di Fui put Gu Shizhou to safety was the moment chaos started attacking. It took a great leap towards him after making a loud cry. In the blink of an eye, the beast was already in very close proximity. Its great strength had shattered all the big rocks around into piles of dust. Driven by immense anxiety, Gu Shizhou could not help but break out in cold sweats. If she were free to move around, the first thing she would do was to teleport, along with Di Fui, to safety. However, her teleportation failed in the protective layer. Therefore, she could only watch helplessly as the beast approached. A huge mouth appeared somewhere below its ribs, big enough to swallow every object around it. Within it, sharp teeth lined its upper and lower jaws. Every tooth was as sharp as a sword. Gu Shizhou and Di Fui looked like 2 helpless squirrels standing next to a giant elephant. They were physically not on the same level. Run! Gu Shizhou screamed out loud in the circle. She could barely suppress her anxiety. The protective layer could shelter her from the torment of its sharp teeth, but it would not be the same for Di Fui, who was not properly secured. Once bitten, he would instantly become a snack. Chaos was blowing gales of a hurricane as it approached. Meanwhile, Di Fui's robes danced violently in the strong wind. Despite the impending danger, Di Fui continued to stand his ground. He ignored Gu Zijia's appeal completely. Thus, she had to witness as Chaos went into a rampage and attacked like it had a strong grudge against them. Gu Shizhou was stuck in the protective layer with nowhere to run. She could only watch, as its mouth came closer and closer to her. Crack! Gu Shizhou heard a teeth-gritting sound. The loud screech was uncomfortable in her ears. Gu Shijiu held her fists so tightly in discomfort. However, she looked up and saw something unbelievable. Di Fui stood in front of her with his lute in his hand. Chapter 2149, the immense level of stress that he had to face chaos attack was strong, enough to shake the lute in Di Fui's hand. His face went pale in an instant as blood oozed out from certain parts of his hand. However, he remained still. His right hand continued to hold tightly onto the snow-white lute. Using his other hand, he reached into his pocket and took out a leaf. With it, he started to play another melody. Surprisingly, he could imitate the sound of a lute with only a leaf. Only this time, the melody sounded more calming, like a lullaby. Smoothly, he continued to play the sound. The creature's violent eyes seemed to blink in quick succession. Gu Shijiu was right behind Di Fui, so she could not see his expression. Instead, the beast's expression was clear to see. Its piercingly cold eyes were staring intensely at her before the sound of the lute was heard. However, as soon as the melody started to play, the look in its eyes started to soften. In fact, it started to look a little lost. Gu Shijiu stood in the circle without moving at all. She could already tell that she was the reason behind its rampage. The beast was actually trying to attack her instead of Di Fui. For this reason, Di Fui had to conceal her behind the protective layer to isolate her from the beast. It could see her, but as long as she remained still, its rage would disappear. Even within the comfort of the protective layer, the beast's power still cast a large amount of pressure to her. It was suffocating. She could not imagine the level of stress that Di Fui had to face, now that he was standing face to face with the beast. It was definitely an immense level of stress that he had to face. This made Gu Shijiu admire Di Fui even more. The man was like a mountain, strong enough to provide her with a sense of security. There he stood, right in front of her, as he carried away all the dangers that she had to face. The melody continued to fill the air, and finally, the beast let down of its wings to cover up its scary eyes. Slowly, but surely, its massive body started to shrink. Gu Shijiu could finally be relieved. Although she was not directly involved in the fight, she still felt as if she had just escaped death. She was sweating with every pore. Di Fui turned around to remove the protective layer. His fingers were trembling even though he tried to hide it. "Are you all right?" He was concerned. Although the beast was only an illusion, its power must not be underestimated. Even a golden immortal could barely hold it back. The beast's brute force would already crush a mortal from miles away before he or she could even get face to face with it. Although the protective layer could shelter Gu Shijiu from its bite, the pressure that it carried was still able to impact her. When Di Fui was playing the melody, he was worried that Gu Shijiu might not be able to handle the pressure and cry out loud in fear. To his surprise, she did not make a sound and continued to stand very still. Her self-control impressed him. Even though she was an ordinary human now, losing her spiritual power did not reduce any of her composure. Di Fui was happy with that. "Let me have a look at your hand." The first thing that Gu Shijiu requested was to see his bleeding hand. The part between his thumb and index finger was hurt. Blood continued to flow from the wound. Gu Shijiu did not like what she saw. She took out a bottle of medicine and applied it on his wound. Despite being injured, Di Fui liked to see her being concerned about him. He enjoyed having all of her attention. Chapter 2150, the discovery of her low profile. Di Fui was lucky that it was only a wound, the bleeding stopped very quickly. Concerned about Gu Shijiu, Di Fui turned his hand, which was holding hers, around and observed her hand instead. "Are you hurt at all?" Gu Shijiu did not let go of his hand. "No," she reassured him. "I am sorry," she said hesitantly. Had I not moved 2 steps forward, it would not be agitated, and you would not be hurt." Gu Shijiu was still in remorse for what she had done. Di Fui took a breath and caressed her hair gently. "Silly, do you really enjoy taking responsibility for everything? Even if you stood still, it would still see you and go into the same rampage. Perhaps, the attack would come later, but the consequence would remain the same. Gu Shizhou was astonished. Why did it have a grudge against me? Di Fui was equally confused. Chaos was especially triggered when it saw Gu Shizhou, like a resentment that it had from a past insult. Perhaps, you have once defeated it in its original form? He made a guess. Huh. She could not believe that she once possessed such great strengths. It was only a guess. He sighed. After all, they did not grow up together. Before he was born, she was already taking over the world by storm. But if she had defeated chaos, was it a beast from heaven? Gu Shizhou blinked her eyes in apparent confusion. I can see that chaos is such a magnificent beast. If I really had defeated it, I would definitely have told you about it, since we were close, right? Gu Shizhou knew that she would definitely brag about the achievement to her own fiancé. Di Fui placed his hand on her shoulder before reassuring, Shizhou, you used to carry a very low profile. Gu Shizhou was surprised by the discovery. Di Fui refused to continue the discussion in order to prevent the revelation of more weak points to his position. Swiftly, he changed the subject. All right, chaos is now asleep. It will continue to do so for another 4 hours. After that, the barrier will close again. We have to bring the others out. Gu Shizhou was utterly surprised. They only had 4 hours to escape. Di Fui was indeed successful in changing the topic as Gu Shizhou no longer thought about the question about her past behavior. She was a woman of action, so she wanted them to move quickly. What are we waiting for? Let's go. Quickly, she used her teleportation and carried them away. They did not have much time, so they had to get everyone out soon. As for the situation of the valley that was beyond the barrier, she did not have time to check it. At this moment, she could only do one thing at a time. The people in the clan were prepared for their return. Upon seeing them, they cheered in high spirits. Then, they followed their array formation and exited the cave in an orderly manner. Over the past century, these people had spent most of their lives there. Most of them were actually born there. Although the living conditions were harsh, they were still saddened by the fact that they were leaving the place. Before they left, some emotional villagers were already crying. The heartfelt farewell continued to affect everyone's emotion. The sense of attachment was not helpful to the battle that they were about to face. Hence, the clan leader quickly motivated them. You haven't seen the outside world, have you? The world out there is very beautiful, with a city full of buildings and the streets filled with bustling businesses. There, you can eat whatever you want and wear whatever you wish. We can finally establish our new lives in peace. Our children can finally run around in the city safely. Chapter 2151, For a better future, they would do all they could, they will be able to go to school and learn new things. Unlike our lives here, there is no sense of security. We don't even know if we are going to live another day with enough food. When we finally settle down in the city, you may come back here to have a visit in your free time. The clan leader's motivation worked well in lifting their spirits. All of them were instantly full of vigor. For their children and for a better future, they would do all they could. They had made a thorough plan in advance. They left according to how they had planned it. The elders, the women, and the children would be walking in the middle. The fighters would surround the group to provide protection. Di Fui and Gu Shizhou would be taking the lead. Tai Dan and Tai Nyo, along with the rest of the strongest men in the clan, would be at the tail. The large group of people had triggered the emergence of the phantom beasts. Fortunately, only 1 or 2 beasts appeared. At most, there would only be 4 beasts at the same time, not a huge swarm. As long as they killed the beasts right at the start of their formation, they would not be a problem anymore. Some of the beasts they encountered were exceptionally brutal, but they were outnumbered. As soon as the beasts approached, the men would fight them to prevent the unarmed villagers from getting hurt. Gu Shizhou and Di Fui would then coordinate to kill the beasts instantly. The journey was threatening, but not exactly dangerous. The distance from the cave to the outskirts of the valley was about 20 miles away. With teleportation, Gu Shizhou could cover the entire journey in about 8 minutes. Some of these people knew basic kung fu, and if they ran without any obstruction, they would take about half an hour to complete the journey. As for the elders, the women, and the children, they made up the majority of the clan, so their slow speed had certainly affected the progress of the entire group. Furthermore, their encounters with various beasts only made things worse. After 2 hours, the group could only cover half of the journey, but the good news was that no man was left behind. Nonetheless, Gu Shizhou started to worry. If they continued to travel at the same speed, chaos would already be awake even before they made it to the wizardry barrier. However, she also knew that they were already trying their best to travel quickly. Unless they decided to abandon the elderly and the disabled, the entire group would not be able to make it out alive. Hence, Gu Shizhou wondered if there were any ways to improve their progress. Fui, can you put people into your storage space? Gu Shizhou suddenly recalled the existence of his storage space. She was hoping to carry the 8 elders in the space, for they were the slowest ones in the group. It does not work that way. The storage space can only carry non-living things. It is a vacuum in there. The elders would die due to a lack of oxygen. Gu Shizhou was not happy with the answer. Fortunately, another idea came to her mind. She could teleport with 2 persons at a time. Then, she would come back and carry another 2 with her. However, the idea was dejected by Di Fui as soon as she proposed it. Each teleportation covers 2 or 3 miles of the journey. Along the way, there will be phantom beasts everywhere. If you leave them alone while you turn back, they will most probably end up being eaten by the beasts while you are away. Gu Shizhou tried to think of a few other solutions, but all of them were rejected due to some flaws here and there. Shizhou, under the current circumstance, we must sacrifice the elders. There are not many, only 8 of them. Otherwise, more than half of the people here will die. Di Fui was the most rational, but also the most cold-blooded person. The way he analyzed things was very sharp and yet brutal. He noticed that there were only 8 elders who slowed down the entire group, 2 men and 6 women. Chapter 2152, The Great Escape. Gu Shizhou could not agree with Di Fui's suggestion. No way. She understood that it was the best solution, but she could not simply leave them here to die. The elders had been very kind to her. Whenever there was something nice to eat or wear, they would definitely keep it for her. Lovingly, they treated her like she was one of their own. The entire clan respected them. These elders were desperate to make it out and see the world out there, too. If she really abandoned them, they would not survive on their own. Gu Shizhou took a breath and answered firmly, let's think of some other way. Di Fui absolutely understood her concerns, so he agreed. All right, we shall try other ways. While they were having the discussion, a loud, doleful cry could be heard. The sound was a little childlike but was equally prominent. Gu Zijia's expression changed abruptly. Tightly, she held onto her sword and warned, the leader of the beasts has emerged. Dozens of phantom beasts appeared and lunged towards the people in a well-arranged formation. All the men quickly went into a violent battle. In an instant, it was all very chaotic. There were bawling sounds, howls of the beasts, quick footsteps, and some helpless screaming. Di Fui pulled Gu Shizhou aside and suggested, we should kill the leader of the beasts. Take me there. The leader of the beasts was able to summon and gather other beasts into a large swarm. Once triggered, it would attract hundreds of phantom beasts. By then, they would lose all control of their current defensive situation. They had to kill the leader of the beasts before things went haywire. Gu Shizhou knew how severe it could turn out to be. Fortunately, from the sound of its howling, Gu Shizhou could already tell where it was located. She only had to take Di Fui there. All right, she agreed. Then, she turned around and informed the men, we are going after the leader of the beasts. You have to carry out the defense on your own for a while. Sure. They answered in unison. Gu Shizhou left the group and teleported along with Di Fui miles away towards the direction of northwest. The leader of the beasts was hiding there. As soon as they left, the villagers had to face the phantom beasts on their own. Like before, the men could handle 1 or 2 beasts at a time. However, with dozens of them, the battle became a difficult one. The beasts were obviously trained to attack by choosing the weakest group of people. Tai Dan, Tai Nyo, and their men were filled with indignation. They stuck together to face the attack. Violently, they fought the beasts with no reserve. Fortunately, Di Fui had taught them a formation beforehand to help them defend themselves in all directions during an incoming attack. So far, they continued to hold their positions. To their surprise, one of the phantom beasts could fly. It dove straight towards the center group of people. Swiftly, it avoided the swords from the circle of armed men. There were the elders, the women, and the children in the center. Obviously, they were not prepared for the unforeseen circumstance. In a wave of helpless screams, the phantom beast was about to attack a small child in the group. Before its claws managed to scratch the child's head, an elder quickly ran across and lunged forward to cover the child's body under his. The beast's claws penetrated straight through the old man's back. The armed men were still fighting the incoming beasts. Occupied, none of them could leave their positions to save those in the middle. In all stresses and strains, the phantom beast suddenly attacked another child. "Our death is nothing. We have to save the child," the old man on the ground pleaded weakly. Thus, another old man chose to sacrifice his life to save the child. He died under the claws of the beast. People continued to scream in distress. Tai Dan could no longer bear to see the same situation occur. He was about to leave his position and help those in need. Chapter 2153, The Great Escape, 2, We should leave the array and attract their attention. "All right, old man. We shall fight them until our last breaths." The rest of the elders were synchronized. Simultaneously, they took their iron rods and aimed them at the phantom beasts. At their age, their strength would do no harm to the beasts. Instead, they only managed to trigger the beasts even further. In a rage, the particularly beast they attacked was going to kill them. "Now!" In a mess, a voice could be heard making a sudden command. It was obviously a signal. Together, the 6 elders pushed the younger men who were fighting in the front line apart and rushed out of the group. Tai Dan and his men had never expected that the elders would make their sudden exit. With no time to spare, they could only watch as the elders ran further and further into the distance. The beasts on the outside were unable to break through the formation and were desperate. Upon seeing the elders approaching, they switched their target and aimed at them instead. The crowd was utterly shocked. Some young men wanted to follow the elders regardless. "Grandpa! Grandma!" Gu Shijiu saw what happening, but her hands were tied in the battle with the leader of the beasts. By its side, there were another 2 massive phantom beasts that served as its guardians. They had not been able to get close enough to kill it. As soon as she heard the sudden rise of chaos, she quickly turned around to check it out. That was when she first saw an elder being hunted down by a beast. Caught in a shock, her arm was almost slashed by one of the beasts that she was currently fighting. The elders were slow, and the beasts were moving very quickly. Not long after they left the group, they were all brutally killed by the beasts. Their last voices echoed. "Don't come here. Stone, take the children out. Our deaths will not be in vain. Stone, please take care of them." Their last words hung in the air. Tears started to roll in Gu Zijia's eyes. Di Fui's heart was equally moved. He knew that the 8 elders were the slowest ones in the group. Judging from their synchronized actions, it was obviously something they had planned. They took the opportunity to sacrifice themselves. Firstly, they did so to ease the stress of the younger men in the battle. Secondly, they did not wish to delay the progress anymore. Di Fui was not very emotionally attached to the people. He only agreed to save the clan because of Gu Shijiu. Without any emotions for them, he could easily make the most rational decision to find the most suitable solution. However, to witness the sacrifice came as a shock to him as well. He finally understood why Gu Shijiu insisted on saving each and every one of their lives. 5 minutes later, the leader of the beasts was killed. Swiftly, they returned and killed other beasts. As for the 8 elders, their pieces of flesh and bones remained on the ground. The clan leader collected some of their bones. Some of the people in the group started sobbing. Almost everyone was equally affected by the tragedy. Gu Shijiu took a deep breath and gave Di Fui a stern look. Di Fui froze momentarily upon seeing the iciness in her eyes. Then, Gu Shijiu turned to look at the group of people. She was sad, too, but it was not the time to show it. I promised to take everyone out of here. She did not cry, but her eyes were obviously red. I will not leave anyone behind, she said firmly. That is right. No one will be left behind. All of them agreed. Furiously, they clenched their fists tightly in response. The group continued their journey. Only this time, the progress was much better. Almost everyone was running. The leader of the beasts would only appear once a day. Therefore, after its death, they did not encounter any phantom beasts anymore. Gu Shijiu continued to take the lead, acting calm like she was unaffected by the death of the elders. When Di Fui stood beside her, he suddenly realized that her hands were icy cold. Chapter 2154, The Great Escape, 3. Di Fui could not help but think that this must be the biggest amount of lost lives that Gu Shijiu had witnessed in recent months. She must be having a difficult time right now, the pain in her heart must be unbearable. He wanted to hold her hand, but she flicked his hand away as soon as he approached her. Shocked, he looked at her, but she did not look back. Instead, she kept a distance from him. Di Fui did not know what to say. He pinched his mouth into a tight line in bewilderment. Did she think that the elder's death had anything to do with his previous suggestion? Did they choose to sacrifice their lives because they had heard what he told her? He did not use directed audio when they had the conversation because he wanted to reserve his energy for better purposes. He already tried to lower his voice as much as he could, however. Did the 8 elders still hear him? Was that the reason? While they were on their journey, he tried to hold her hand again. I am sorry, he apologized in a deep voice. Gu Shijiu halted her steps. It is not your fault, she answered. She took a deep breath before continuing in a trembling voice, I am only angry that my kung fu is not any better. If her kung fu were strong enough, she would be able to work independently with Di Fui. She would have been able to protect the innocent lives. Now, she was mostly dependent on Di Fui for his support. There was a sense of guilt in his eyes. If it were not for his frequent act of compelling her into a relationship in the upper bound, she would not have revealed the heavenly secret. She certainly would not have ended up here for all this suffering. Moreover, she would not have lost all of her spiritual power and be doomed to become a mortal being. Shijiu, I will protect these people with you. He gave her a quick, tight hug and made the promise. Frozen momentarily in his embrace, she finally nodded firmly. All right. About an hour later, they finally arrived at the edge of the wizardry barrier. It was an entrance to the valley. The area used to be covered by the layer of red fog so they could not see through the fog to know how it really looked like. The clan leader had a multitude of feelings surge up upon seeing the view of the mountains, with shapes protruding like fangs from afar. A century ago, he followed the men in the hunt as a child and entered the valley. After all this time, he was finally leaving the place. How would the outside world look like? No one knew. However, there was hope for a better world, as long as they could make it out alive. The surroundings of the valley were still filled with the layer of red fog. However, there was a clear path that could lead them miles away to safety without any foggy intervention. Nevertheless, on each side, the red fog could be seen slowly closing in. Apparently, the entrance was closing up again. Run fast, but orderly. Gu Shijiu commanded. When the last man escaped, the red fog finally sealed the path again. No one could see the path from which they came. The clan leader finally heaved a sigh of relief. He did not quite know how to feel as he stared at the layer of red fog fixedly. They finally made it out. After a century of being trapped, they finally made it beyond the red fog alive. The rest of the clan was excited by the view of the outside world. Although they were still deeply moved by the death of the 8 elders, the newfound freedom could at least ease the pain in their heart. After clearing the valley, they came by a hill. After the hell they had been through, they would come to a pathway in the mountains that could lead them all the way out to civilization. The valley was filled with an abundance of rocks. There was hardly any green anywhere. It was usually covered in different shades of gray. However, life was thriving in vivid green on the hill. Many kinds of flower blossomed in many colors everywhere. They had been running for their lives for quite a long while. Now that they were safe, they finally felt a sense of relief. Some suggested that they should take a rest on the hill. Many agreed. The journey had been a very exhausting one. They desperately needed rest to eat something and regain their energy. Chapter 2155, The Great Escape. 4. Gu Shijiu was also exhausted. Along the way, she had used her teleportation skills so many times and was even involved in a series of battles. At this very moment, she could feel that her legs were weak. However, she dared not take a rest like everyone else. They were new to the place, so no one could be sure that there was no incoming danger. She wanted to send a few men out in different directions and secure the perimeter but was quickly interrupted by Di Fui. He sat her down on a big rock and said, "You should sit down and have a rest. I will take care of it." Gu Shijiu noticed his fairly pale complexion. "There is no need for that. You should rest while I check the place out." Her eyes then swept across the hill as she said, "The place may not be too safe. We should take a break for only an hour. After that, we should resume our journey. The next stop for rest will be in the city. Tai Dan, you will guard the southern side. Tai Nyo, you will take the northern side." After a series of commands, these men took the orders and spread to their respective positions. Their preparation was sufficient, so things moved swiftly. All of them had water and food supplies with them. The food that they had was only grilled meat. Furthermore, they only ate when it was absolutely necessary due to the limited supply. Suddenly, someone recalled Di Fui's promise. "Mr. D, you told us that you would give us the dishes you had given to Gu Shijiu once we made it out alive." Yes, Mr. D has promised us so." The discussion continued. These people continued in chatter to lighten the atmosphere. But, not all of us survived. Grandpa Tai Shu, someone had to dampen their spirits. Grandpa Tai Shu was one of the elders who chose to die in the valley for the general good. At the thought of the death of the elders, the chatter slowly faded, and the atmosphere became gloomy again. Di Fui took a look at the sad faces in front of him and proceeded to take out something from his storage space. In his hand, there was a small bag. The crowd was astonished. Could all the dishes be stored in this small, seemingly useless bag? It seemed impossible. It was, indeed, impossible. Instead of the dishes, Di Fui took out some fruits from the bag. There were peaches, pears, and plums. There were more than 100 pieces of fruits, and he gave them all to the clan leader and said, "Distribute the fruits to them." These people had never seen fruits all their lives, so most of them did not know what he had passed to the clan leader. The clan leader knew what the fruits were, however. He thanked him for the gift and passed the fruits to a few honest men to distribute to the villagers. Each person can have one. The children will have two. The fruits tasted sweet and refreshing. It was something that the villagers had never tasted in their entire lives. Most started to enjoy it after the first bite. The children were obviously happy and screaming in excitement. They placed the fruits carefully in their hands and took careful bites. The crowd was happy again. These people were still grateful for Di Fui. Without him, they would not be able to make it out alive. Before the journey out, most of them had never seen him in a battle with the phantom beasts. They finally had the chance to witness his strength on the journey and were thoroughly impressed. There was a look of admiration in their eyes. On a rock, Di Fui sat and closed his eyes to take a short rest. He was even more exhausted than the rest of the group. After all, he was the one who took the lead in every battle with the phantom beasts. Furthermore, it was not that long ago that he even encountered Chaos, the great beast. His spiritual power had been greatly depleted throughout the day, and his arms and legs were getting weak. Someone sat down next to him. He opened his eyes and saw another pair of bright eyes staring back at him. He frowned. Quietly, he shifted away. He was not used to having someone get too close to him. He resisted the urge to push the woman far away only because she is a friend of Gu Shizhou. Chen Chao was very enthusiastic at that moment. She tapped Di Fui's shoulder and complimented, "Mr. Di, you have done great. From now on, I will never call you a weak man."